This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. A retired general surgeon, Venkat Iyer, has written books for medical students and about senior care. Now he takes his experience and weaves it into a medical thriller entitled The Clinic. It's about assisted reproductive technology, gene therapy, genetic modification, and experimentation on homeless people gone wild.
It is a fiction, but it is totally based on solid facts and research of exactly what is happening in the medical science today. So it's all mostly 99% facts, but there's some fiction and imagination added to it to make it like a story. Two of the ladies who have been identified to have genetic problems for their fetuses after they got pregnant, they have a choice either to terminate the pregnancy, which is 80% of the people opt for that, or deliver the baby and raise the disabled baby. And the third choice is coming up, treat and correct the genetic disorder in uterus before the child is born. So that's what this whole mystery is about. So they're being sent to this secretive island where they have very advanced facility where they can do all the gene research and gene modifications. And of course, there are some complications when you do this gene modifications, so that sometimes mutants are born and there is some human experimentation. These things are not allowed in any country because of what's happening in the social, moral, ethical, legal issues. Now we are seeing this big problem in US with this societal change and conflict because of the Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade. And what is the women going to do? They have a dilemma what to do. And the second societal change that's happening is that women are postponing their first motherhood to late 30s instead of in the 20s. When they were in the 20s, they had no problem. But now they have educational career ambitions and they are forced to postpone their first motherhood to 30s. And in that process, there is a whole lot of issues being explored, which includes egg freezing, in vitro fertilization, and all of these are being addressed in a very nice fashion.
The dark website is at work here. The dark website is very real and a very scary place.
Right.
And so how is the dark website in your book collaborating to assist here?
We have three entities. One is a fertility clinic that is treating patients who have a fertility issue. So the first story starts with one couple who are unable to conceive because she had ectopic pregnancy and her tubes had to be tied. So she's sent to the fertility clinic, and there they get through the in vitro fertilization, and then she becomes pregnant. So during the Lamaze class, everyone is asked to have a gene test because this is becoming the standard. So these two ladies, they are found to have the genetic abnormality for the child. So we have three entities, the fertility clinic and the secretive genetic laboratory in the remote island. And these two are being connected by the dark website. The dark website is the one that enables people to register for further treatment in the remote island. At the same time, the dark website also has other services that are not available for general public. But once they reach the remote island, the two ladies are being taken for treatment and the two husbands have free time. And they find out through some of their acquaintances and friends who are working there as employees about all the other activities at the remote island: gender modifications, gene editing, preference choice for the women, how they want to have their child born, IQ, intelligence, color, all those things, and then stem cell treatment, the treatment of various disorders, congenital disorders, creating new life. And also they find out that they're doing a lot of activity and research on transplantation techniques. Also, one of the horror things they find is that they have kept a bunch of humans as captive. And these humans are brought in there from all over the world, homeless people dying of starvation, malnutrition, and no one is missing them. So they go and pick these kind of people and promise them good food and nourishment, and about 300 of them are kept there, and they are going to be used for human experimentations, which will cut short a lot of the time delay in the conventional research. And also, their organs will be retrieved and genetically modified. And babies who are just pregnant at 6 weeks or 8 weeks will be taken out for embryonic stem cells and so forth. So that's one horror part they see. Another horror part they see is the bad side effects of genetic modifications, which includes mutations, human-like looking animals, and some violin and all that. My story ends with a raid into the island by few countries like United States and Russia and China. They all come together and say that we need to reduce the power of this dark website and the advanced genetic research, because we don't know how the human race is going to be transformed, because these mutants can produce their children as their mutants. So the human race could get transformed altogether.
This makes Frankenstein sound like a children's book, Dr. Iyer. Thank you so much. A lab tech at a chemical plant, writing is Courtney Beale's creative outlet. Her dystopian fantasy, Obsidian, was inspired by a dream she had about her twin sister.
I had a dream that my twin sister died in my arms, and I still remember just how devastating that was. So I wanted to write a book about how special the bond between twin sisters can be, and that together any obstacle can be overcome. So it was literally something that I wanted the reader to really be able to feel and connect with.
So the name of your book is Obsidian.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
So in the book, one of our main characters ends up falling in the clutches of our antagonist.
Damien?
Yes. Yep, that's correct. So he turns her heart into like this obsidian stone. So he, in a way, transforms her and her outlook and basically her will to defeat him.
Okay, now these are not humans. We're talking about, what are these people?
They are kind of like their look is human, but the Demerites, like Damien, they have dark veins, and they also have dark eyes, but their irises are very bright, like ice.
And Lila and Lily are leaders of Armoria.
Yes, that is correct. Armoria is basically another realm. The first book actually is centered more around the Earth side, but they have kind of a portal in a way to this other realm, which they find that they are descended from. So Damien, he's our antagonist. He's in the first book. They have their battle, but it's still ongoing throughout the second book. Damien's main goal is to have the power to take over not only Armoria, but Earth as well. So we're kind of fighting on both fronts. And then Lily and Lila, again, it's basically kind of their journey together. It does focus on their relationship, and in Obsidian it is broken. So it's kind of centered also around their attempt to mend their relationship too.
Does this have any correlation to anything that happened between you and your sister?
No, we are best friends, so our relationship is great. But I think it definitely creates an interest to where, since their relationship is so good, now they have to fight to get it back to where it was.
These close sisters are trying to mend their relationship. And you keep talking about another book. So is this the first of a few books?
This is the second in the series.
So do we need to read that first book to understand what's going on in the second book?
I would definitely recommend it. I wouldn't say you would be totally lost just jumping into the second, but the first will have a better backstory, and then the reader would have a better understanding of what Obsidian is about.
Do people know that you wrote these books?
Yes, I've been reaching out to several bookstagrammers that have like thousands of followers, and they're helping me like post the images and reels of the book. So it's helping.
Bookstagrammers.
So basically, they're just people on Instagram that all they post is about different books. Several of them helped me do a cover reveal for Obsidian, which helped me get a bunch of people interested in it. They also do reviews for the book, which helps people to know if it's, worth reading. Usually there's their followers and people that they follow are also in the same circle.
So you can find out more about Obsidian. And what's the name of your first book?
Aftermath.
Okay, everybody, make a note of it. Bookstagram. Find them on Instagram. Craig McDonald used to tell his great-grandson stories about this treehouse he built as a kid, with embellishments, of course. And the next thing he knew, he had enough embellishments to write The Magical, Mysterious Treehouse.
It was in a suburb of Chicago, a little town called Lombard, which at the time I was growing up, there was only like 19,000 people. It was at the end of a street on the edge of a cornfield. And it was quite massive, really. It was 3 stories tall. It took us about 3 months to build, me and a friend of mine.
How old were you?
I was 8, my friend was 9 at the time we built it.
And you built a 3-story treehouse.
Yes.
Was it safe?
Oh, yeah, it was real secure. I mean, we used to have a lot of people up in it, and we even had a tree swing off of one of the branches, and it was quite the thing.
Wow, that's so cool.
At that time, there was a huge housing boom going on. So we were able to go around to the construction sites. And back in those days, they just threw away stuff like it was nothing, All the off-fall wood we wanted and all the screws and nails we could find on the ground we could have. And so that's how we got all the materials, most of the materials to build it.
And you knew how to use a hammer and a nail, obviously.
Yeah, we were pretty good at that for that age, I guess. Every night we'd go to bed and he'd say, what chapter are we on now, Grandpa? And, I would make up a new fantasy, a T-Rex coming attacking the treehouse and Pumpkinhead and a witch was attack us, and it was all kinds of different things I just made up. One of the first ones we had was it was a Halloween night, and the 3 of us were in the treehouse, and I incorporated Jade into the story. He's my great grandson, so I brought him in as one of the people that was in the story, even though he wasn't. So we were in the treehouse. It was a Halloween night, and we heard this cackling, and we scrambled up to the top of the treehouse, and there was the Wicked Witch was flying around. And she was trying to get us. So we came up with the idea of like in the Wizard of Oz where they threw the bucket of water on the witch.
Yeah.
So we did that and the witch disappeared. Everything in the story is, anything that we defeat just disappears, like melts away.
So every story's got a happy ending.
Yeah.
How many years did that treehouse last?
Oh, shoot. It was still there when I moved away at the age of 13. It was about a mile and a half away. And I'd still see them, and I'd still go over there and stuff, but it kind of put an end to the treehouse.
Yeah. Aw. Did your great-grandchildren read it and your grandchildren?
Yeah. Oh, they loved it.
That's the best part right there. You going to keep writing?
I've already got the second book written, Further Adventures of the Magical Mysterious Treehouse. I bring my granddaughter in on that one, by Jaden's aunt, and I've already got 25 chapters on it written. I'm not sure if I'm going to write any more or not.
That's great. You're letting a girl in the treehouse. I like that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in the first one, we had a rule of no girls allowed.
Of course.
And then we broke it, and we brought all our sisters up, and I bring them into the book. And then later on in the second book now, I bring my granddaughter in, and we do away with the rule altogether.
Do you have pictures?
Yes, there's 12 illustrations. Like we get to see the first Thanksgiving play out. And we get to watch the first Christmas where we see Jesus in the manger and the angels are overhead singing, and the shepherds are coming and the 3 wise men.
From the treehouse, you see this.
Yes. The Mistress of the Woods is the person who supplies all this for us, and she creates this stuff, these fantasies for us. Nobody else can see them but us. If anybody else would come along, they wouldn't even see them. And none of the stuff that happens. About halfway through the book, I bring in a little boy named George who supposedly grew up on the farm that this treehouse borders on, and he's a ghost, and we're the only ones that can see him. And the Mistress of the Woods brings him so he can have a childhood, and he tells the stories of growing up in the 1800s, and he tells the stories about his uncle being in the Civil War, and that's in the book.
Great story, Craig. Thanks so much. Meet Dungeon Master J.S. Lohman, and author of The Curris Chronicles with a K, Part 1 of The Black Hand. It's a game and a teaching aid in one.
These are stories that I used to tell about adventures that my characters and 2 of my oldest son's characters had been on. And I would tell these stories while we were riding in the car. And you'll have to remember now, Alice, this is back when we didn't have iPhones, tablets, or videos that they could watch while we were in the car. And so telling of these stories was a great help in keeping peace between them as we traveled. So they would literally listen for hours to these stories. So I've always been told, Papa, you need to write these stories down and share them with other people. And so now that I have grandchildren of my own, I do want to share these stories. And so I wrote the Curse Chronicles to be able to do that, not only with my children and grandchildren, but with everyone. Chronicle 1, Part 1 tells of the beginnings of the relationship between Curus of the Black Hand and Moraga of Havenhome. And it also serves as an introduction to their children. Bud, their eldest son, nicknamed the Golden Boy, Miranda, their eldest daughter, and the first set of God gifted twins born into the family, Jasmine and Salome, and also of their grandchildren, Mira and Mara, the second set of God gifted. And it tells all that has befallen them throughout their family's dark and infamous history, as they are portrayed as being the source of all that is evil. And the story will tell the truth of that. But yet it's a love story. It's sharing what it's like to find and be with your soulmate, learning that there's good and evil in everyone, including the gods and goddesses that you may worship. And it tends to lend insight into what it means to be marked or gifted by the gods. And the Chronicle 1 is a story being told by Auntie Aura as to the origins of the family. But it also tells about teaching those that have these God gifts how to use their gifts. And it also tells the real story behind the infamous history of their family in these lands. The first book is basically centered around the war going on between the serpent god and the god of what we'll call man, the good people, okay? And in this realm, it's basically the serpent versus everyone else. And the serpent is trying to free their dark lord, okay, and their master from a gem that he was imprisoned in. And this is the story of how Moraga was involved in that and how Curus was involved as well. But there are so many twists and turns because everyone has set ideas of what is good, what is evil, and good and evil aren't always so set. And Curus, because of his god marking, is considered just evil by everyone because he's got a black hand. It's obsidian black, as black as you can imagine. And his hand, only his hand. And it's his whole hand, not just, it's the whole hand is as if it were a piece of sculpture or something. And so this marks him, and there are, prophecies and things of that nature. And so all these books are the fulfilling of those prophecies and their story in the fulfilling. And more than anything else, though, it's truly a love story about finding the one that you're supposed to be with and going through hell to be with. So I'm kind of excited about it. My wife is my very own Moraga, and so a lot of it's patterned after things I've seen, and heard and whatnot. But mostly it's based on adventures that characters actually went on, which makes it kind of neat for the D&D. And I'm still a dungeon master, still play D&D. I guess one never gets too old to be a child. I've used Dungeons and Dragons as a teaching aid for my children. Teaches them math skills, teaches them the ability to be able to get along with other people, teaches them so many things that they wouldn't learn any other ways. And I found it to be inspirational for them in a lot of cases where you wouldn't think it would have been. But it is in our life, it's been able to be used to teach a lot of really good values. And I'm hoping that my books will also be a teaching aid in promoting really good values.
All right, J.S. Lumen, thank you. Marty Kahn is becoming a regular on the Page Publishing Book Club. He's a retired colonel, U.S. Air Force, and he's a very busy writer. We just talked about his first book with Page entitled Uncommon Duties in the U.S. Air Force. Now he's back with Losing Weight, a common sense approach. Marty, did you have a weight problem?
No, I did not. But I was surrounded by people, a few in the military, and also family members, and a lot of friends who had a weight issue. And I never had a weight issue, but after traveling to many, many different countries, and I was required to be fit, and I was fit. I noticed that diet and what we eat plays a huge role in maintaining certain standards, personal standards. It's essentially educating readers on lifestyle and nutritional habits that are really easy to adopt and to promote weight loss. And it has to do with eating in moderation and learning more about the different kinds of foods. It's based on my own experiences, and I've spoken with individuals in the field, but it's essentially the importance and the necessity for me to eat well to maintain my weight standards, and looking at other people struggling to lose weight to make sure that individuals take control of the process. You have to commit yourself to eating nutritious food in moderation, and also participate in some kind of physical activities, and those must be sustained over a period of time. And individuals must have confidence in themselves in their weight loss program so that they can achieve some form of happiness that they're striving for. What I recommend is a variety of foods, things with various colors, vegetables and fruits with all different varieties of colors. And I would also recommend things like Italian food, the Mediterranean style of cooking, and also Oriental foods that are stir-fried at very, very hot temperature with a small amount of meat or fish, those kinds of things, and with lots of herbs and spices that goes along with it.
What kind of exercise do you recommend?
I would recommend walking at a start. Walking either alone or with a friend, but you'd want to actually minimize the amount of time one spends with a friend or a family member. You want to have some, but you want to actually minimize that, because that actually takes away from the concentration of what one is trying to achieve, and also you get into conversations that they may not be too helpful to one who's trying to lose weight.
You know what my favorite thing is? People in the gym on the bicycle and they're on their phone.
Yes, and I've mentioned that in my book. You've got to be careful when one goes in the gym. I mean, it's going to gym is a good thing, but you would have individuals who are going to be there moaning and groaning and making sounds on their phones, and waiting for a couple seconds of attention, and that could be intimidating. And we have to find a balance. You can go into the gym, but find yourself a little corner and exercise, and then try to do something else. But a gym can be very intimidating.
But Marty, you realize you're not like everybody else. You're very focused, very determined human being, and this is very important to you. And to some people, it's not important until they have a heart attack, or they can't walk, they can't get the knee surgery because they weigh too much.
Well, that's true, and because I see what's going on in our society, how people have been struggling to achieve some level of happiness, and because of my awareness all these years, I thought I'd be able to share some ideas. And yes, if it's important to somebody, then you've got to forget about societal pressures, and you have to understand that the human body needs the broadest variety of nutritious food, and just stay focused. Lots of patience, and the changes are not going to come immediately. It's going to come slowly, but it will come.
Good advice, Marty. Thank you. Jareen B. Wright didn't even know she had a book in her until she wrote Now Abides, Faith, Hope, Love, Book 2.
Yeah, I was going through some troubled times, and I used to drive a tractor trailer, and I was driving down the road, and the story came to me, and then I just sat in the back after it was not my turn to drive anymore, and I started writing, and it started coming out, and it just came out and out and out. Now abides this girl who had met her husband in the spirit, and the whole story it's just like God just poured that story out to me. And it gave me a sense of peace where I wouldn't have to be thinking about what was going on, what was happening to me. It's about a girl who met her husband in the spirit before she met him. Well, it was really her boyfriend and in the spirit before she met him in the natural. She's 17 years old. Her name is Cassiara. She was expecting something from God because she knew God had something for her. And one day she was out riding her horse in the field where they live and saw a vision of this big, beautiful white glass-like looking house. And she looked up there and she was like confused. And then she saw her sister and then she looked around and she saw this guy and she stopped. And then she looked and it's like he could see her. And so next thing she knows, her sister is calling her and she finds herself laying in the grass. She had fallen asleep. So she can only enter that world when she sleeps. She was amazed because she was like, wow, that was something that just, she didn't expect it would happen for her. And that's how the story starts. And then other things happen. The bottom line is, I want people to understand I love the Lord. And God is real in our lives when we least expect it, and then when we know He is. Cassiara's family is very strong Christians, but her sister's having trouble because her girlfriend had got raped. And she couldn't understand why it happened. Her girlfriend, Vanessa, had got raped, and she couldn't understand why it had happened to her. And why would God allow that to happen to her? Because she was such a good girl and she was looking to be a Supreme Court justice. And she was saving herself for her husband, Vanessa was. And Cara, Cassiara's sister, couldn't understand why God would allow her girlfriend to get raped. So everybody in the first story that has responded to the book 1 loves Lisa, because Lisa is the mother of Cassiara and she helps everybody get through what they have to get through. So in order for you to appreciate book 2, you have to read book 1 to appreciate book 2.
And, the idea is faith.
Yes.
Faith that there's a path, faith that there's a direction, faith that somebody's going to be there for you when you think nobody's
there. Yes.
All right, Jareen, thanks so much. We're here for you and for all of our authors so we can inspire our listeners and give them faith that they can, if they really, really want to, put their thoughts together and write a book too. If you want more info on our authors or books, go to pagepublishing.com and download that podcast at 710WOR.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.